Number 10. The Lost Airman. Edward Miller was killed on November 22, 1952. He was flying in a Douglas C-124 Globemaster troop transport plane with 51 other military men en route to the Elmendorf Air Force Base near Anchorage. But the plane lost its navigation as it came in over the mountains, got swept into an Alaskan blizzard, and the plane crashed into the side of a jagged mountain. This was about 9,600 feet up on a glaciated peak. Tragically, Edward Miller and every other man on the plane died. Their bodies and all their belongings were covered in just days under feet and feet of ice and snow. For the last almost 70 years, the wreckage and the bodies have been hiding under the ice of the Colony Glacier. But Edward Miller is now going home. His body, along with the remains of dozens of other men who died in the crash, have finally been recovered. Military searchers located the wreckage and unearthed all 52 bodies of the lost. And believe it or not, the recovery had a lot to do with the sudden and rapid melting of the glacier since the early 2000s. In 2012, an Alaskan Army National Guard crew in a Black Hawk helicopter spotted the wreckage poking out of the ice. From there, it was just a matter of organizing a recovery team and breaking the Army men out of their icy prison. Number 9. World War I Bunkers. A melting alpine glacier in Europe has revealed a bunker used way back in World War I. Not just one bunker either, but an entire series of tunnels and hideouts that have been lost for nearly a century under thick ice. The biggest and most impressive cave shelter was found in northern Italy, originally used during the war to shelter about 20 Austrian soldiers. These soldiers were stationed at Mount Scorluzzo. According to historian Stefano Morosini, they were part of the White War, where soldiers battled each other high up in the frigid Alps, where the temperature could drop to -40 degrees. Inside the half-frozen shelter, archaeologists found preserved food, kitchenware, and jackets that the soldiers had made from animal skins. These artifacts show just how terrible the soldiers' lives were as they lived in the extreme conditions. Not only did they have to fight the enemy, they also had to put up with avalanches, horrifying temperatures, and extreme isolation. The only reason this cave shelter was even discovered all these years later was because of the warming in the Alps melting the frost and ice. But even still, much of the cave base is still frozen solid and unable to be explored. Number 8. Ancient Wolf Puppy. In the summer of 2016, a gold miner working in the Yukon Territory of Canada came across something incredible. He was blasting a wall of permafrost with a water cannon to see what he might find underneath. For Neil Lovelace, he was hoping to find gold. What he discovered instead was the oldest, most intact wolf mummy ever discovered. Ever! Thankfully, Neil was able to rescue the frozen puppy from the permafrost and place it inside of a freezer until paleontologists could arrive on scene. The ancient wolf pup was a juvenile female who lived at a time when Canada was home to mastodons and other crazy animals that we can hardly even imagine today. Archaeologists were able to date the wolf puppy back 57,000 years. This truly was an unprecedented discovery, especially since most of the cool Ice Age animals are found in Siberia. But this one was Canadian, in the far north where the ice caps used to be extraordinarily thick. The young gray wolf had likely been part of the population that migrated across the Bering Land Bridge from Siberia into America. She died at only 7 weeks old, from something researchers can't quite pinpoint. She's so amazingly preserved that her hair is still soft. Number 7. A missing restaurant worker. Here's something you don't see every day. In New Hope, Pennsylvania, a man was discovered behind a local restaurant literally encased in ice. He was discovered by a builder at the restaurant who was doing some renovations. The builder noticed something kind of peculiar inside the swimming pool behind the restaurant and went to take a closer look. That was when he saw what appeared to be a human body stuck under the frozen surface. The builder called the cops. The cops had to chisel the man out of the ice. And that was when things got really strange. The cops took the man's ID from his wallet, which also happened to be frozen solid. The man was identified as Jose Quiroz Marcial, a person who had been missing for nearly a month. His friends had assumed Jose had been picked up and detained by US immigration officials, but instead, he had somehow fallen into the pool and froze in a giant block of ice. The police don't even have any idea how he got into the pool. The whole place is surrounded by high wooden fences. He would have had to jump over the fence, trip over the edge, and then drown before eventually freezing. Number 6. Seawolf Submarine. The USS Seawolf is a fast attack submarine commissioned back in July of 1997. It was the first of the 3 Seawolf class submarines currently in the Navy. It's quiet, fast, and can carry at least 50 torpedoes or 100 mines. It also has the uncanny ability of traveling through brutal Arctic terrain. It was recently deployed to the North Pole on a 6-month mission. The sailors on board spent a full 2 months submerged, passing through the Bering Strait near the border of Russia, sailing under 30 feet 9 meters of solid ice, and ultimately punching up through that very ice sheet at the North Pole. It took them 5 whole hours to clear the ice off their hatches, just so everyone could pop out and have some fresh air. The commander of the sub, Jeff Byerly, called it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and one that not many people get to have. There was nobody in the North Pole except for those climbing out of the submarine. Would you ever embark on a journey to the North Pole by spending 2 months underwater in a submarine, trapped not only under the water but also under 30 feet, 9 meters of ice? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 5. The Antarctic Pyramid. Deep in the cold and brutal wilderness of Antarctica, there seems to be a pyramid from a lost civilization that lived hundreds of thousands of years ago. The Antarctic Pyramid was spotted thanks to Google Earth, looking exactly like the Pyramid of Giza except blanketed in ice and snow. But here are the facts. We know Antarctica was once covered in a lush forest hundreds of thousands of years ago. Antarctica had not a scrap of ice on it and was actually more like what the Amazon jungle is today. This means it would have been habitable for an ancient race of people, but these conditions were at a time before human beings had evolved. If a civilization really did live here, they would have been the first human civilization on the planet. Then there's the issue with geology. Eric Rignot, a professor at the University of California, says it's not a pyramid at all. He says it's just a mountain that happens to look a lot like a pyramid. So, we have geologists refuting the theory of the Antarctic Pyramid. We also have the possibility that a mysterious ancient race of beings built the monument and it's since been buried in ice. Since the pyramid is so far away at the bottom of the world, the debate won't be settled for quite some time until somebody actually goes down there and physically investigates. Number 4. Chile Sharks. In 2018, as the eastern seaboard was getting rocked by gusty winds from the Arctic and horribly frigid temperatures, sharks began to wash up on the beach. And yes, they were frozen like shark popsicles. 4 thresher sharks in a row were found frozen stiff on the shores of Cape Cod. But just wait, these sharks didn't freeze to death because of the cool weather. Greg Scommel, a local fisheries scientist, says they likely got stranded in shallow water while trying to migrate south. Thrasher sharks are notorious for migrating late, normally in December after blue sharks and mako sharks are already long gone. But the early blasts of cold caused them to panic and migrate early, which meant they got stuck on mudflats moving too close to the shore. Then once stuck, it was only a matter of time until they turned to solid ice and were pushed to the shore. Number 3. Mammoth Brain. The mummified brain of a woolly mammoth was found frozen in Siberia. According to the experts, it is the most intact mammoth brain ever found. How old, you ask? It's 39,000 years old, still complete with its folds and its blood vessels. It was discovered way back in August of 2010, near the remote town of Yukagir in Russia. Researchers named the mammoth Yuka, saying it was probably between 6 and 9 years old at its time of death. After the mammoth and its brain were discovered, they were transported to an ice storage for preservation. From there, the specimens have been moved around the country all the way to Moscow to be put on display. But what's truly amazing about the discovery is that researchers were able to examine the mammoth brain using CT and MRI scans. They could actually see the cerebellum of a woolly mammoth, something that's never been done before in history. Anastasia Kharlamova from the Russian Academy of the Medical Sciences says studying the whole brain of the mammoth could help figure out what kinds of complicated behaviors it had. Researchers now believe the woolly mammoth was extremely similar to modern elephants in how it acted. The only really big difference between the two was that the mammoth had a whole lot more hair. Number 2. Prehistoric worms. In the Siberian permafrost, researchers have discovered tiny worms from 42,000 years ago. According to a report from Live Science, these frozen worms were then brought back to life. We all know the feeling of waking up from a really long nap and feeling disoriented. But imagine how these worms must have felt when they were roused from their slumber of over 40,000 years. The worms are nematodes, microscopic critters that live in soil. Scientists found them thanks to the rapidly melting permafrost. They had been suspended in something like cryogenic stasis ever since the Pleistocene era. And yet, being frozen for tens of thousands of years seemed to have no negative effect on the worms. Scientists revived 2 species of them successfully. It's not clear what exactly this discovery means in the larger scope of things. We already know a lot about nematodes. They live up to almost a mile below the Earth's surface, deeper than any other animal. Some of these worms even have 5 different mouths, while some worms have adapted to living inside the intestines of slugs. They are some of the most diverse and adaptable multicellular animals in the world, and now we know they can sleep for nearly 50,000 years in the ice. Number 1. Atlatl darts. In Canada's Yukon, archaeologists made an incredible find inside a melting patch of ice. Jennifer Herx, the heritage manager of the Carcross Tagish First Nation, uncovered a fully intact atlatl dart. This is rare because fully intact darts are almost never found. Usually, it's just fragments, but this one was complete, an entire ancient spear used at least 1,000 years ago. The indigenous people who lived in the Yukon, way up in Canada's northmost region, used the tools for hunting. An atlatl dart is basically just a long wooden shaft with a stone point tied to the end, then decorated with feathers. When woodland caribou gathered on the northern ice patches, the indigenous hunters would converge and take down as many as possible. Sometimes they left their tools behind. This must have been one of them, discarded after a caribou hunt and then frozen over by ice for 1,000 years. Thanks for watching. What's the wildest thing you've ever found frozen in ice? Tell us all about it in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. See you next time. Bye!